Welcome back to the Collegiate Athletics Advocate. My name is Will, and today we're going to continue our discussion on conference realignment, specifically the Pac-12's expansion efforts. This is my second of 3 videos in this series taking a closer look at the expansion candidates that I outlined as possible additions to the new Pac-12. In my last episode, I talked about UNLV as being the top expansion target for the PAC and my expectation that they'll be joining the conference. For this episode, we're going to talk about the 3 schools from the American Athletic Conference that I highlighted in my first conference expansion video: Memphis, Tulane, and UTSA. Back in September, the rumor mill was churning out stories about these 3 schools, as well as USF joining the conference. The 4 schools would then make a public statement jointly reaffirming their commitment to the AAC. It was later reported that the PAC had offered them each $2.5 million to pay for exit fees that were supposedly as high as $22.5 million to $27 million for a 2026 entry. And that was the end of the story at that time. Many folks felt animosity towards the PAC leadership since they saw it as a shortchanging of some of the PAC's best options. Some vehemently defended the PAC, saying the additions weren't worth the money or the travel hassle. As is the tendency with the nature of many disagreements, I believe the truth lies somewhere in the middle. To find out for ourselves, let's look at the 3 that I believe to be the best candidates for Pac-12 expansion: Memphis, Tulane, and UTSA. Starting with Memphis, this one is an easy one. The program has been primed for elevation for years. From just missing out on the last round of Big 12 expansion, not with the 4 Pac-12 schools, the one before that with BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF, to the Pac-12, to possible ACC membership, to the PAC again, Memphis has been spun around the merry-go-round of conference expansion and realignment over and over again, just waiting to find their next step up. Deluxe, I think I'm saying that name right, I really hope so, it's a channel, made an excellent video on it already, so I'm not going to go too far in depth on that, but I'd really encourage you all to check that out if you haven't. From what I can gather, Memphis fans were feeling pretty miffed after having to watch 3 of their American Conference brethren get elevated to the Big 12 in 2023, and then seeing SMU, another conference rival, pay their way out of the conference last year. Anyhow, Memphis makes a strong case as a candidate for conference realignment. The first reason for this is the value of their athletic department. According to NBC's list of college athletic program valuations from 2024, Memphis is 75th in the nation, falling just behind conference rivals East Carolina and South Florida. Of the schools that are to comprise the PAC in 2026, only Washington State, Oregon State, San Diego State, and Boise State rank higher. However, valuation is nothing without corresponding on-field results. That brings me to the second reason that Memphis is a great fit for conference expansion, and hopefully the Pac-12. Memphis has been a consistent contender for conference championships in the last 10 years and before, in both football and basketball, coming out on the top of the conference multiple times and getting multiple bids to the March Madness in that span. While they haven't been to the college football playoff yet, they've been in the conversation as G5 contender since the inception of the expanded playoff. As for the other criterion, making them a good fit for the Pac-12, their facilities are top-notch for a G5 school, and on par with some lower-level P4 schools. They have a robust fan base in a fairly large DMA, which is 51st in the nation, with no professional football teams to contend with, and they're in the Central Time Zone, right on the Mississippi River, so they're not outside of the geographical limits that the PAC has set. All of those reasons make Memphis a prime candidate for Pac-12 expansion and my personal top pick from the American Conference. The next school to discuss is Tulane. For those of you who watched my last video on UNLV, I think they are actually very similar in a few respects. The first is in the strength of their football program. If you have a short memory or have only been watching college football for a few years, then they seem like a no-brainer. However, if you've been watching for longer than that, then their successes may appear to be more a flash-in-the-pan nature. Unlike UNLV, however, I think they lean more towards being a top G5 program rather than simply a momentary star. There are a few reasons for this. The first is the financial stability of their athletic program and the university as a whole. The second is the length of time that they've been performing at a high level and the heights they've achieved in that regard. A more recent AAC championship than Memphis and a New Year's 6 bowl game victory against a blue blood power conference team with a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback to boot. They've kept up their rate of success as a program and as a consistent contender for conference championships even through a head coaching change. Also, similarly to Memphis, they've been in the conversation for college football playoff contention in the G5 spot since playoff expansion was still a concept. Moving on to other aspects of Tulane that make it an attractive ad, their other athletic programs are strong and have solid facilities. Specifically, their baseball program has been excellent, winning back-to-back AAC conference championships in 2023 and 2024, which also came with trips to the NCAA tournament. The school also brings a strong history of academic success, bolstered by its unofficial title as the Harvard of the South. Geographically, they're right on the Mississippi in New Orleans, which is in the Central Time Zone and is the 50th largest DMA in the U.S. All in all, another great expansion candidate and fit for the Pac-12. Now on to our third and final candidate for this video, UTSA. The University of Texas at San Antonio is, in my opinion, the best expansion candidate from the G5 in the state of Texas. While UTSA may not initially look like the most prime candidate for expansion, especially when compared to the likes of Memphis, they do come with a few fantastic pluses. Firstly, UTSA is about to officially merge with UT Health San Antonio under the UTSA brand, which will make it the third largest research institution in Texas. Combo this with its location in San Antonio, the 31st largest DMA in the U.S., and being uncontested by any other big schools or professional football teams in the metro, they have the potential to draw big numbers for TV viewership and big crowds to their stadium, which is the Alamo Dome, in case you didn't know. Not to mention, they're in the state of Texas, which is a football recruiting hotbed. UTSA's football program is interesting, as it is much younger than the likes of Memphis or Tulane, so I'm going to take a little bit more time to explain myself on this one. The Roadrunners played their first game in the fall of 2011 as members of the WAC. In their first game of the season, they set an attendance record for a new FBS team with 56,743 people showing up to the Alamo Dome to see them take on Northeastern State. They maintained that momentum and set a record for average home attendance with 35,521 people. In 2013, they moved to Conference USA and became Conference Championship/Bowl eligible. In 2016, they made it to their first bowl game and had their first NFL draft pick. After some unsatisfactory stints from their first two coaches, they hired current head coach Jeff Traylor in 2019. In those 5 years, they've made 5 straight bowl games and won back-to-back conference championships in 2021 and 2022 before leaving Conference USA. In the past 2 seasons since they moved to the American, they've been undefeated in their bowl games. I would challenge anyone in the comment section to name a team in modern college football that has experienced this level of success. I have no reservations about calling them a sleeping giant of a program, and, therefore, a prime candidate for the PAC. Looking away from football, there's not much to look at in men's basketball. However, they won the AAC regular season in women's basketball this year. Also, their baseball program has been building for a while, experiencing a great deal of success since head coach Patrick Hallmark took over in 2020, not finishing lower than third in their conference since then. They just won their first AAC regular season title this year and are currently still playing in the NCAA tournament. The only minor concern in regards to UTSA would be that their facilities at the moment aren't too much to look at, but they're also not too bad either, so I'm not too worried about them. Looking forward, there is really only upside to this addition, especially when you consider that their biggest rival is also probably the most likely school to be joining the PAC in 2026, Texas State, though I won't talk about them too much as they'll be a star of the show in my next video. Before I depart from discussing the American schools, it's important to talk about the financial side of a move to the Pac-12. The AAC brings in about $7 million per school per year. This is fairly close to the bottom end of the Pac-12's projected media rights revenue. The American Conference bylaws state that a departure with at least 27 months of advance notice demands $10 million. That deadline was April 1st of this year for a departure in 2027, as July 1st of the year they want to play their first game in a new conference is the date when they must officially depart. Since that deadline has already passed, the price of a departure in 2026 would likely be around $27.5 million or higher as the fees increase closer to the school gets to departure. This is, however, where things get a bit difficult to sort out. It was reported in mid-September that exit fees would be $27 million for a 2026 entry. However, when Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston left in 2023, they announced their departure for an agreed-upon $18 million per school. Clearly, there is, or at the very least, a lot of room for negotiation. Otherwise, there is a clause in the AAC grant of rights that I don't know about stating that the more schools that are taken from the conference, either in total over time or at one time, the more expensive the per school exit fees get. Regardless, I'm going to use the numbers from this AAC departure as they are actual numbers that I can actually use for reference and think will be directly comparable to the situation at hand. Speaking of, I haven't really said how I think they'd switch over. In the Pac-12 dream world, they'd all come in 2026, but that's just not feasible. However, I do think there's a very real world where one of these schools is able to switch over in 2026, with the other two following in 2027. In this case, I do think that the first school to come over is going to be UTSA, followed soon after by Memphis and Tulane. This is due to them being a new member of the American. Supposedly, it is easier for them to get out, or they're not getting as much in media distribution yet from the American. That's all really speculation, though. When the three schools left the AAC 2 years ago, the schools gave a 22-month notice and had to pay $18 million each. In the case of UTSA, Memphis, and Tulane, one of the schools would be giving a 13-month notice, but the other two would be giving a 25-month notice. On average, that's 21 months notice between the three, a month off the 22 months notice that UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston gave before they departed in 2023. Given UTSA's limited time as a member and possibly lessened associated cost, I'm willing to go with that 18 million number for the purposes of this exercise, though it may end up at 19 to 20 million. Only time will tell. With all that in mind, here is a breakdown of what the financials would look like, starting with UTSA. On the left is the AAC versus PAC payout comparison. Using the $18 million exit fee estimation as the initial start in the negative, we can see that the PAC would have to provide a subsidization for their departure in order for the move to be profitable, depending on the per-school valuation of the media deal. On the right is the breakdown of that subsidization based on the per-school media rights distribution. The break-even point appears to lie between $10 and $11 million per school per year. With the PAC already having offered $2.5 million per school for 4 schools, we know that they have at least $10 million that they're willing to give out, with the AAC schools wanting more than that in order to leave. We're going to unpack that in a second, but first let's look at the 4-year financials for Memphis and Tulane. Looking at the numbers, Memphis and Tulane would certainly need some more substantial subsidization in order to make the move profitable, as the break-even point is between 11 and 12 million, since they'd only be in the conference for 4 years. Also, I want to address a couple of things. Areas of concern and difference of opinion with my thoughts in this video, before I wrap up, as there are going to be those in the conference that will bring them up. The first is travel. This is one area where I might call myself an insider. It is my belief that the travel costs and time for these schools in the PAC versus the American Conference are negligible. There is a marginal increase in the PAC for Memphis and Tulane, but that is ultimately a wash in the grand scheme of things when you consider the increased amount of donor support which contributes financially, but also translates to support and resources for the student athletes. Again, I know this sounds like a trust me bro, but I experienced this myself as a student athlete and am now in the industry itself. As far as when the ADs speak about it, it's a consideration, but I would say it's more of a bargaining chip in this day and age. That being said, there is a point where it becomes a factor. I can tell you that the Olympic athletes at Cal and Stanford have it rough right now, so all respect to them. This would not be the case for the athletes at Memphis and Tulane, so long as things are done right. The other area where I know I'm going to face resistance is around the potential futures of these schools before 2031, specifically Memphis and Tulane, and in particular the possibility of them being added to the Big 12 or the ACC. The Big 12 is currently at 16 full members, and they seem fairly comfortable with that number. As for the ACC, with there now being inherent instability in the conference and an exit route now clear for those members who might be wanting to depart for greener pastures, it's logical to think that these schools may wait around for the invite that would come after the departure of one of their premier institutions. However, I don't think that invite is likely to come. Based on the financial structure of the exit fees to exit the conference, it is unlikely that the team exits the ACC before 2028. And no more than 3 are likely to depart prior to 2031. In the case that they do depart, the ACC may not even choose to backfill. They currently have 17 teams, but are only paying for 14.6. I've heard it said that the ACC is prepared to go as low as 10 full conference members. If they do add, I believe UConn, East Carolina, and USF are more likely adds. I'll be sure to get into all of that in another video, though, as there's a lot to talk about there. Now, back to the financials. I think it would be safe to say that the Pac-12 should be prepared to spend at least $15 million on the AAC schools if they want to get them to the conference. I'm still confident that the media deal will give out $10 million per school. So the PAC would need to pay UTSA $3 million and $6 million to Memphis and Tulane each, all up front. I believe that they will, as these three schools are important for the elevation of the conference. Without them, I still believe the Pac-12 is the best non-P4 conference. But with them, I believe that the PAC becomes closer to the P4 than to the G5. This gives them the opportunity to consistently make tournament appearances in the revenue-generating sports. That means multiple bids every year in March Madness, men's and women's, and the NCAA baseball tournament. Also, most importantly, being able to capture that fifth auto-qualifying spot in the college football playoff every year, and maybe an at-large bid once or twice, depending on the format. If that is consistent, then they put themselves in prime position for the Great Reset in 2031, when all of the media rights deals are set to end. I will talk more about what I think that will look like in another video coming soon. Before then, however, I will be releasing my final Pac-12 expansion video, so look out for that. For now, I really appreciate you all watching. Please consider subscribing if you haven't to continue following along. We're almost at 100 subscribers. Definitely like this video if you enjoyed it, or leave a comment if you didn't and let me know why. I've been trying to answer all of my comments, but the videos got way more attention than I ever thought they would. I'm extremely grateful for the engagement you've all had with my videos, and I'm glad I was able to help facilitate good discussion around these topics in the comments section, which was always my goal. I hope you all have a great rest of your day or night, and be well.